Welcome everyone. Today is a new episode for the introduction podcast, and we're meeting with Tufan. Tufan, nice to meet you. And please tell the audience a little bit about yourself and why should people listen.
Well, nice to meet you as well. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited. This sounds like a great opportunity. And I've been a data analytics executive for the last 30 plus years. I started my data and analytics career in 1997 is I think the first time I got into truly like analytics and AI fields. And since then, just have been working on that. So I hope to give a lot of concrete, practical information to the audience as much as possible. So I'm excited to be here.
I love this. This is very nice because you've been basically at the birthplace of AI and where this has been originated. I read a little bit about your experience. I saw that you were in physics, and then from physics you made the jump into the data, as you said. What was the decision? What was the opportunity that you saw back in the day in the enterprise data work, different from any other technical position, any other opportunity that was in front of you?
Yeah. So my academic journey began with engineering physics. Specifically, I focused on spectroscopic properties of crystals that are used in light amplification and lasers.
Uh-huh.
In 1993, I moved to Dallas on a scholarship from Turkey to pursue my PhD in fiber optic telecommunication. At that time, fiber optics were not a household staple yet, but I was deep in the mathematical modeling of how light moves through cables and the physical consequences of bending those fibers, right?
Uh-huh.
So that rigorous background in numerical algorithms and simulation was my unexpected entry into the corporate world.
Uh-huh.
1994, I took a job with Sabre where I realized the analyzing leisure marketing database required the same kind of algorithmic precision as
Uh-huh.
simulating light waves. And from that point on, I spent 19 years as a consultant helping Fortune 500 companies bridge the gap between the information they had and the insights that they desperately needed. So my physics brain brings a unique obsession with the signal to noise ratio. So while a traditional tech background, we focus on architecture, physicist in me asked me, is the underlying signal true, right? That perspective allowed me to lead propensity analysis and customer segmentations, projects, and things like that. This is, of course, long before the AI became a buzzword, focusing on levers and that my executives, my stakeholders pull and push to optimize their organization. So that's how I got into the enterprise world.
This is a real superpower when you have a good feeling where is the signal and where is noise, especially right now where the amount of noise has increased tremendously, especially in AI. Like it's so hard to keep up with news, things that are happening, new ways to solve the problem. Tomorrow there's going to be a better way to do things the way that we are innovating right now. So it's very cool that you have ability to differentiate what's good and what's not good. Actually, I have a question about your time at Sabre. You grew pretty much in the company, and you told me in our personal conversation that you even moved to Poland, to Krakow, and you built the data team there. I'm curious about your experience as the leader that was building a team in a foreign country, working under pressure, I'm sure, and providing very good, high performance. What was the challenge for you doing in there somewhere else rather than doing it at home?
Yeah, so that was an interesting experience for sure. So I started back with Sabre in 2017 after all my consulting years.
Mm-hmm.
I returned to lead their data engineering organization, which eventually led to this expat assignment in Krakow. And I was living on the Vistula River with my family, and it was beautiful. By the way, Krakow is a beautiful city. If anybody ever wants to, just if you've never been there, just make a bucket list item. So anyway, I was building the data analytics global competency center, and I was leading that effort. Unfortunately, like 8 months into the assignment, COVID-19 hit, and um, the challenge shifted from technical scaling
Mm-hmm.
to maintaining a human connection during this global crisis. The most profound lesson I learned was that a leader must be a cultural translator. This is just in addition to good management, leadership skills, and all that. But you
Hmm.
have to also be a cultural translator. In Poland, professional culture is refreshingly direct and requires absolute transparency.
Hmm.
There's very little sugarcoating. So the lesson I learned is you had to move beyond the corporate jargon to build a culture of psychological safety. This experience taught me that high performing teams aren't just built on technical proficiency, but on the trust that comes from the genuine presence and a shared purpose, regardless of which country you're in. So those
Very
were my
interesting.
experiences in Krakow.
You are the second person already that today that mentioned to me the psychological, safety and comfort for the people. That's very, that's the part that most of the leaders they miss when they think about innovation and transformation. They just think about the technological aspect of it, and they forget that it's very important how the people, the operators that will be impacted by all those innovations, how do they feel? Are they in line with what's coming?
Absolutely.
And because if they're not in line, there is a chance that your initiative or your transformation, anything that you're doing is going to go sideways.
Very true.
Another question is going to be very interesting for people that have been considering an MBA. So if you are, please listen carefully. You started your MBA in AI in 2023, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
At the same time, you were running a full enterprise transformation at TriNet. For most of the people at your level, like seeing the technology and AI and machine learning evolve for like almost 20 plus years, with that level of credentials, you don't really need education. So, what made you go back to school, and what does the formal AI education is giving you that your experience wasn't able to provide?
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't really about the title or a degree. It was, I have always believed education is an asset that you can never lose, right?
Mhm.
And you got to continuously evolve. If you don't keep learning, you'll stay behind, especially in the technology area, right? So I recognize that technologies like convolutional neural networks and deep learning were shifting the very logic of the enterprise technology. So as I mentioned, I during my consulting years, even like in early 2000s, I was doing machine learning algorithms, things like customer segmentation, propensity analysis, and things like that. So this was before AI was a buzzword, right?
Mhm.
So anyway, the reason I wanted to follow up with this formal education is I wanted to bridge the gap between technical possibility versus business viability, right?
Mhm.
It's very different things. While my 30 years of experience gave me the how, the MBA gave me the framework of why, and more importantly,
Mm.
what cost, right? That's the more important part for me. It enabled me to stop treating AI as a science project and start treating it as a now structural component of the modern P&L. So I'm currently finalizing my dissertation in AI bias, but I also focus on these exact intersections of AI and enterprise value.
Cool. So that gave you a more holistic view on the AI, not just from the very cool experiment perspective, but also from a business perspective, where you think, okay, P&L, why are we doing this project? Like, what's the point? And the point is always,
ROI. Yeah.
yeah, the ROI is the bottom line. Very interesting. Like you are very open and you speak publicly about AI programs that fail. For those, the main reason for those AI programs and AI pilots to fail is not because the technology is not where it should be, but because the data is not investment grade. Like it's bad data. When was the time that you first saw that pattern in your career and you saw that it happens in real time and that it fails any initiative that the company was running?
Yeah, I think this was at Sabre. The first time I saw this clearly was when we were attempting to deploy a predictive model
Hmm.
for customer retention, right? On the paper, the model was mathematically sound, but the
Hmm.
data was not good. So that
Hmm.
that gave us bad results. The sources of the customer data was so fragmented, right?
Hmm.
The definition of customer was inconsistent. It meant one thing to sales, it meant something entirely different to the billing organization, right? Because this data foundation was fractured, AI began to create just, I mean, I called it the statistical noise, right?
Hmm.
This is, you heard the garbage in, garbage out. I call this the garbage in, gospel out,
I
right?
see.
reinforce my conviction that an AI strategy is as powerful as the data governance that precedes it. Without having the single source of truth, you are not making data driven decisions. You're just automating your own confusion.
It's just, yeah.
So that's why it's very important, and that's why I have put in some of my LinkedIn posts around, hey, look, don't just start putting a lot of money into AI tools. Get the data right first.
And what you're saying publicly on LinkedIn, it makes sense for a lot of teams because when you think about a huge enterprise, let's say Fortune 500, it's probably not a problem that they would have, or at least they know about this problem because they can hire a consultant from McKinsey. They have a lot of resources that would allow them to see this problem from miles on. It's more relevant for mid-market companies that they know that okay, we want to do AI, but they have no idea where to start. They don't know whether they're making right things or not right things. There is no one there to advise them because they can't even afford that level of guidance that a Fortune 500 company would do. So that feels like a very, you know, bad conversation for that company because they know that they want to do something. They have no idea are they on the right track, and there is no one there to advise them. So what do you think, what is a good entry point for a mid-market company to start implementing AI? What was the first thing that they should do?
Well, in my opinion, the mid-market companies often feel paralyzed by the Fortune 500 playbook, right? They see this multi-million dollar roadmaps from high-price consultancies and assume that they aren't ready, right? My
Mhm.
recommendation is to ignore that grand transformation for the first 6 months. Instead, identify a single high friction, high volume operational bottleneck. You don't need a massive strategy to start.
Mhm.
You just need a use case that solves a real pain point for a specific department. The goal for a mid-sized company should be augmentation of the processes instead of transformation.
Mhm.
Move from curiosity to utility as quickly as possible by solving a problem that people actually care about. So be more pragmatic. That would be my recommendation.
Hmm. It's very interesting. I'm curious if you've seen this issue happen. If somebody's, let's say somebody's individual or the organization is super small, it's very easy for them to move because they can implement things. They don't really need to go through a very long approval process. If the organization is huge, well, they have separate departments that are running this AI transformation that are taking this into production, and it's their job to sell this across the whole organization. Do you see that the mid-market companies, they tend to be in the middle where they are too big to move fast, but they are too small to have somebody that does this as the main line of business? So when you look at the day to day, let's say we can use AI for multiple things where you just take functionality. Like I need to record a call, a sales call. Then the sales call notes are automatically synced into Salesforce, and then they're shared into LLM. And then I have an email drafted for me as a follow up. It's a very simple use case. But why do you think so few mid-market companies are actually doing this yet?
Well, I think the main reason behind that delay is adapting that practical automation, right? I mean, the example like using the LLM to turn a sales calls recording into a text, a
Hmm.
structured data, and then going and creating a Salesforce lead. These are simple things for a
Hmm.
for an AI, for an LLM, right? In my opinion, leaders are often waiting for a perfect, all-encompassing platform where instead of just stitching together the powerful tools that they already exist, as I mentioned, I'm more pragmatic. Let's just
Hmm.
take a look at what you have and let's just use these tools that you have to make something like that happen, right? A simple LLM can transcribe all the recording and populate the necessary fields in Salesforce very easily. I think the biggest problem is there's a lack of process imagination. People don't realize that the gap between a conversation
Hmm.
and a structured database entry can now be bridged for pennies.
Hmm.
And when I call this a Tuesday workflow, I'm signaling that the AI should be as mundane and reliable as your morning coffee, not a special event.
Somewhere there, so it just exists and does its thing. You set it up once, you don't touch it, and it's removing it's removing a task from your to do. Interesting. Sometimes you want to tell people, hey, just use AI, ask it, just explain it your situation. I am a manager. in department XYZ, I'm doing this, 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 this. This is my problems right now. This is what we need to achieve. What are the top 5 easiest things that I can do with
I
AI?
do that all the time. Just have a conversation with AI and try. By the way, don't get stuck with one model or one version or one mechanism. Try different things. I talked to Claude, I talked to Gemini, I talked to ChatGPT. Just try different ways of communicating. And by the way, like you explained, it's really important for you to give as much context as
Hmm.
possible to AI, because with the more context you give, the better responses you're going to get from AI.
Yeah, context is actually the gold, and it's part of my next question. Whenever you managed hyper automation platforms, RPA, intelligent document processing, you understand the back office reality and how those processes actually run. You have SOPs, you have maybe even some of the process mapped for the high stake workflows, but in reality, you see that people are handling the exception cases one by one. You can have same standard procedure, but one person in claims department will process the claim one way and make one decision, and another person will make a totally different decision. So, what did you find out about how those decisions are actually being made by experienced people when they're avoiding the SOP, when they're avoiding the context based on, I don't know, their own internal knowledge? What did you learn at that moment when you were doing those automation projects?
Yeah. So this is a very important point. When you automate high stakes processes like invoice processing or benefits decision,
Mm-hmm.
you will quickly discover that the standard operating procedure, the SOP, is not complete.
The dream state.
It's often missing. The real decisions are made through the tribal knowledge, the unwritten rules developed by the experienced employees over decades. So,
Mm-hmm.
in this sense, automation acts as a diagnostic tool. It
Mm-hmm.
forces the truth moment where the business must reconcile what it thinks it does
Mm-hmm.
with what it actually does, right? The most important part or the most valuable part of this journey isn't the software, it's the clarity that forces the business to finally define its
Mm-hmm.
own internal logic. So that was my biggest learning on
Wow.
automation.
Interesting. So it's kind of like you have it's its purpose to reveal for you what is broken, so you can actually finally look at it without emotions and say, all right, well, we need this, we need to fix this. Interesting. What about data foundations? So for, like you already said this, for any AI to win, for any company to win with AI, you need to have a very good data foundation. Your data needs to be at the right place. What would you recommend to mid-market companies who want to start doing something? What is like the minimum viable data foundation that would unlock the real AI value? What is the point where mid-market companies should say, well, in order for us to get any tangible results with AI, we at least should do this and this with our data?
Yeah. So yes, data is very important because, as you talked about, like the AI requires context, which
Hmm.
is data, right? So the line between just enough and not enough is drawn with consistency. You don't need a pristine company wide data lake to start.
Hmm.
What you need is a vertical slice of high quality data, whatever the problem or the use case that you have, problem you're solving, right? If you're automating a claims process, that specific data must be accurate. It has to be traceable and it has to be governed,
Hmm.
right? You can
Yeah,
allow the rest of the enterprise data to remain messy for a while, but the data fueling your AI engine must be clean enough to trust and structured enough to scale.
interesting. And in your experience, so you already mentioned data, you already mentioned tech, you already mentioned people. For what is the most common reason in your experience for the failure in AI project? Is it one of those three or is it something else?
Well, it's the human element, right? That's
Mm.
really important. I mean, having built teams across Europe, India,
Hmm.
US, I can tell you that initiatives rarely fail because of the technology. I actually give this example to a lot of my friends. In my consulting years, I had two separate clients at the same time,
Hmm.
same year. I was removing Cognos from one company and installing business objects for their enterprise reporting literally At the same time, with another Fortune 500 company, I was removing business objects, installing Cognos. It should tell you that it's never about the technology. These initiatives fail because of the organizational frictions, mostly because, as I mentioned, the human element was ignored.
Hmm.
If your frontline staff feels that AI is a threat to their job rather than a tool for their empowerment, they will subtly find ways to bypass the system.
Hmm.
Success requires a combination of change management and very clear definition of ROI from day one.
Hmm. I'm sure that most of the people were not expecting that kind of answer. They were thinking, "Oh, it's definitely data," because every fall from every post on the internet, you will always see, like right now, that's what I see. Everybody talks about data. Almost nobody talks about the human factor.
And the models and the technology, right? The human factors actually
Yeah.
makes it a success.
So while you were consulting the Fortune 500 companies, they had AI roadmaps that were presented to them by their consulting firms. What were the good recommendations in those roadmaps? And what was just useless piece of expensive paper that the company has received?
So the most useful part of bringing a big consulting company and creating a roadmap, in my opinion, is the external benchmarking. What I mean by that is knowing where you stand compared to your peers, because these consulting companies are doing this over and over with different companies, and they have a very good understanding,
Hmm.
a feel of where the industry is, and they can quickly tell you where you are compared to your peers. So that external benchmarking is an important, very important value that you get from these consulting roadmaps. Now, the expensive paper is that 5-year execution plan. In the current climate, 5-year plan is a fantasy.
It's going to be relevant in a month.
I mean, look at just this last few months. Look at last 2 months. The introduction of OpenClaw, NVIDIA introduced NeoClaw.
Yep.
Just last week, Anthropic introduced cloud computer use, where it's shifted the whole market's potential overnight. It's unbelievable how fast it's moving. I try to keep up with this, and even like every day I'm watching news, reading articles, trying to keep up with it. It's so hard to stay up to date with that. And if your roadmap doesn't allow you to pivot like every 90 days,
Hmm.
it's not a strategy. It's just a very expensive souvenir. It's especially the 5-year plans. I think they are useless at this point.
And the same thing can be said on, let's say, AI education. If anybody comes to your organization and they try to sell you like the education for your staff or things like that, well, that education should be ongoing, because the moment when a new tool drops, you as the trainer, you learn, and then you need to get that knowledge to the new organization, because yeah, like you're gonna be outdated.
I think instead of educating people on certain technologies, you got to give people that curiosity mindset, right?
Huh?
They need to start listening to podcasts and start implementing some small things into their day to day life. Just
Yeah.
start small.
It's actually, I'm curious whether somebody like 2 questions ago, when I asked you about the mid-market companies and where they should start in terms of their data, I'm sure somebody had a question like, all right, but I have like 5 processes that require my attention, that they need automation, they need AI. How do I actually choose? How do I know that I made the right choice on where to start in terms of AI implementation? What would you recommend these people to do?
Well, my recommendation is very simple. Start with the shadow work. Every company, and I mean every company, has a mountain of manual data entry, right? Repetitive emails,
Hmm.
document searching, and all of these things consume like 30% of an employee time. Don't hire a chief data officer yet. And instead, just start a small task force to automate one specific Tuesday workflow that I mentioned earlier, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Once you prove that you can save 500 hours in a month in a single department, the ROI will be so visible. The rest of the organization will be, wanting more. So just start small, take a manual process, repetitive emails or document searching or something like that. Just automate that.
Yeah, just start something that is the lowest hanging fruit with the highest potential,
Absolutely.
to demonstrate the ROI, and that can be your business case for anything more serious that you want to do. Lastly, I'm curious, where do you feel AI is going? AI is general technology and also like AI in enterprise, AI in mid-market, because at the end of the day, while the hype settles and the dust settles, you actually see what gets adoption and what doesn't. Like I just read like yesterday that ChatGPT, they sunsetted Sora, and I remember when Sora was going out, it was everywhere, and you were hearing about Sora everywhere, and now it's sunsetted. There may be a lot of reasons for that. We never know. But what would you tell to your friends, or to if somebody just asks you for your opinion where this whole thing is going? How do we make better decisions in the next 3 years in terms of AI? What would you tell to these people?
Well, the Sora story is interesting. As a matter of fact, I was listening to it the day before yesterday. Not only they like completely got rid of Sora, which I believe there are reasons behind it, right? It's
Uh-huh,
there's a very high compute product, so they're probably optimizing their products with the amount of compute capacity that they have in the next 3 5 years.
uh-huh,
And Sora was not providing as much ROI for their compute.
yeah,
So anyway, regardless of that, when my opinion for the next 3 years is we're moving from the era of chatting with AI to the era of agentic workflows.
uh-huh,
Right. Right now, we are impressed when an AI writes an email. In 3 years, we're going to expect AI to monitor our inbox on a daily basis or hourly basis, identify any customer issues, like inventory,
uh-huh.
coordinate shipping, and only notify us if there's any problem that they cannot handle to requires human intervention, or notify us when the problem is resolved and things like that. So
It would
my
be nice to
advice
see
to
like, hey, I did this for you before your morning coffee.
yeah, and by the way, I said 3 years, and I mean like broad use of it,
Uh-huh.
because what I just mentioned right now is happening, and I know people who use agents to do all those things, but this is 1% of a 1%
Yeah,
of the corporate, right?
yeah.
Uh, I mean, I set up my agent Claw. It checks my emails on a regular basis, and it tells me on a daily basis, hey, as of this morning, you have these 3 important emails. You need to follow up on those. My advice to my close friend would be stop looking for the next big thing, right? Start looking for the next small integration. The winners of the next few years is not going to be the ones with the most advanced models.
Uh-huh,
They're going to be the ones who have successfully integrated AI agents into the boring parts of their businesses. As
uh-huh.
I mentioned, those manual data entry, repetitive emails, document searching, and that's where the success is going to lie.
Yeah, yeah. I see this in my day to day. Like the more complex the workflow is, the more judgment, the more knowledge it requires, the more expensive it is. So, but you don't really have to start at those hard cases. The most important thing is that what you already mentioned, clarity. Like if you have enough clarity on what's good for your business right now, what's the easiest thing to do, you don't really have to go, because you can jump into this perfectionist hole where you're trying to find the best process in the world, and then you start worrying, okay, we need to fix this, we need to fix that, and then you're in the rabbit hole. And instead of getting something done and shipped, you're just like going in circles, understanding that the problem are never ending and you're
It
never getting
never
this into
ends.
production.
Never ends. You're right.
It's been a pure pleasure to fun. I hope that anybody listening to this, uh, minimum what they get from this podcast is just go talk to your LLM. What is the Because there is a low hanging fruit. The problem is that you just don't see it. So either sit down and try to understand yourself what is that low hanging fruit that you can tackle, or just talk to AI, and it will be more than helpful to give you ideas and tell you what to do.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, just you can find me on LinkedIn and you can
I'm
reach
gonna
out.
I'm gonna tag you on the podcast and on the posts. So definitely, if you guys want to chat with Tufan, he's gonna be more than open to talk to you.
Great.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.